Well, first of all, just want to thank everybody for attending today. Also wanted to make a couple of other introductions. In the room today, we have one of our new hires, Glenn Vickery, who joined us from San Diego. I want you to take a stand. For all of our current clients, Glenn has been hired as a client relationship manager for ongoing training and support. So if you do have any needs and you are a current client, which I know a few of you in the room are, give Glenn a call. You can still call me, but I may defer a few things to him now. Wanted to go ahead and get started here.
One more introduction.
Oh, John.
John Hickman, our regional director, has flown down from Seattle just for the meeting today to support us and say hello to everybody. So thank you, John, for coming. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Sean, for being here. So just a show in the room of hands of how many people have used either LoopNet or CoStar. Quite a few. All right. Perfect. So we've got some friendly faces here. I'm happy to see that. I wanted to go for those folks who are unfamiliar with our company or who might need a refresher. A lot has changed in the past few years. Just a little bit of an overview of the company itself. So we're more than just CoStar. We did purchase LoopNet in 2012. We also more recently acquired Apartments.com, giving a wealth of multifamily data and a workforce that we've invested quite a bit in to work with property managers and multifamily owners throughout the country. We've been around for 30 or so years now. We began as a company tracking sales comps for commercial and retail buildings and have now expanded into all verticals across commercial real estate, including commercially zoned development land, in addition to multifamily, industrial, logistics, office, retail, and specialty products in the marketplace. So everything that you guys have touched. We currently have close to 400,000 for sale records that we track across the country. There are a number of records within CoStar that you're not going to find within LoopNet. That is because we are in direct contact for lease updates and rent updates and to get past transaction stories from direct owners and property managers. So we are sort of the front line in terms of communicating with a lot of the properties that are in the marketplace that you work within. Over the country, across the country, we've got about 4.3 million properties now that we currently track. More pertinent to the folks in this room, we track nearly 60,000 properties within just the state of Oregon. The number's about the same within the Portland metro, to include also Salem, Eugene, and Vancouver. And currently, there's about 678, well, exactly 678 since yesterday, properties that are under construction that are commercially zoned within the state of Oregon that we're tracking as well, or that are proposed, so permits are out. So we do work with most of the verticals within commercial real estate, on throughout to the ancillary services that support you guys. So we do work with insurance companies. We work with across the country with some folks that do cost segregation, that do engineering, that do development. But our bread and butter is brokers. We have a number of brokers here in the room that have used or currently use either CoStar or LoopNet. And then probably followed closely by property managers, especially in the multifamily side, and then lenders. So the ways that some of the clients on the brokerage side use us: prospecting for new listing opportunities, finding the deals that are on the market either for sale or for lease, and working throughout the database to try to find some connections to opportunities that they have listed. On the lender side, the lenders are going to be using us for understanding the properties that they're lending on, understanding the risk within the markets that they work, and also using us for some more high-level strategic reallocation of their efforts into new markets or new territories or new product types.
Before you go on, one of the charming things about CoStar is the fact that on all those commercial properties that we're tracking is the availability and delivery to the users of true ownership, as well as footprints, photographs, etc. So not only are we looking for listings for the brokers, we have the ability to potentially go out and find off-market opportunities. I've heard a number of times today amongst the crowd that listings are extraordinarily difficult right now. They come on, they go too quickly. I had a client I talked to yesterday who put it on LoopNet and came in the next morning and there were 2 offers on the fax machine in his box. There are lots of people out there with lots of money, so CoStar's charm is that you have the ability to potentially do some homework, find out how properties are performing, find those that may be value add, and then go ahead and have a strategy by which to go out and talk to properties that may not be on the market for sale, but you could work your magic to convince somebody for that.
Yeah, going into the consulting approach that Kevin was talking about earlier, in fact, so many of the brokers today are not just in it for the short transaction, but for the long-term consulting relationship with the client. So understanding the leases and the rents that are on the market, the vacancies that are on the market against peering, competing properties. When you're talking with the client, you can actually then use that data to help put a strategy in place to put $200,000 or $300,000 more of equity into the building by the time that they agree to list it with you. So I need to kind of lean over here. Some of the more high-level questions that we as a company, of course, can answer from experience working with so many people who use our data. Can info give an edge? I think that that's a pretty intuitive answer. Information can certainly give you an edge. And we're going to go through and actually see that the companies that are doing the most transactions use information services for their business. Do CRE investors efficiently price risk? Well, if anyone's ever listed an undervalued property, you know that not all of them do, and this is where the opportunities often are. Do assumptions during the hold period impact investment decision? How are we operating, or how are our clients operating their properties? Again, being able to understand how the other peers in the market are performing can help you to determine this. And do market dynamics matter? Do market cycles matter? I think the answer is that of course they do. Some of the more applicable questions that we can help individual clients and individual projects answer. What is a typical hold period across the different verticals? Where do we go in to try to prospect for that new listing, depending on how long an owner has held an asset across different asset size tranches and across the different verticals? And I'm going to show some interesting slides here that's actually going to inform you on multifamily and office, what those typical hold periods are. Where are the opportunities and the risk? Again, having a broad view of the market and being able to look at it from a high level and understanding, where those properties might be that are typically underperforming. That's going to help you to answer that question. Where are the buyers, the sellers, and the tenants? So we're going to look into how we can use information to sort through and actually find some of these opportunities as well. So can information give you an edge? I just looked at the state of Oregon and the firms that have transacted the most sales volume or number of transactions in the past 3 years and historically for the Portland market. And we can see that all of these that are highlighted actually do use, if not just CoStar, a number of different resources and tools in their tool chests to better understand the markets that they're working in. And here's the second page of that search that I did. So I also wanted to show you guys something not so much just CoStar oriented, but something that's a little bit interesting for you guys that are tracking the markets and want to understand what the impact of deliveries is going to do for us in the near future. So we actually have a team of economists in Boston who analyze some of the statistics in the market, such as rents, vacancies, new deliveries, and absorption, and then weighing that data against some of the beige book factors, such as employment and net migration. And we're actually able to see what the supply and demand looks like across any given vertical down to the submarket level. So we can see that, of course, 2015, we all know, was a huge year for commercial real estate. We're not seeing a huge drop-off, but we're definitely going to see some cooling in this. How is this going to affect vacancy? Well, of course, with new deliveries, we're going to see that in the next 5 years, vacancy is, in fact, going to go up across all of the verticals across the state of Oregon. However, we're also seeing that despite all of these new deliveries, because of factors such as net migration and employment rising, that across the markets in Oregon, in fact, we don't see a huge slowdown in increases for rents. So, in fact, in multifamily, in some of these markets and in some of the other verticals as well, we're going to be outperforming the rest of the country in this.
Steve had a question down front.
Yeah, we can. Yep, go ahead.
Whatever.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
You got that table output that showed, and I don't use CoStar. I'm curious, can you do a search, can you get a tabular output like that, and export it?
yes.
On that table that I showed of the brokers that are transacting? Yes.
Yeah, Ryan, could you repeat?
Yeah, so the question that Steve just asked is the slide that I had showed previously that showed an output of the brokers that are transacting in the market. Yes, we'll actually jump into the system and show exactly how you can pull that up. Jumping into office performance across the state, again, kind of a similar trend. 2015, another big year. Banks started lending 2013, 2012 again. And we're going to be seeing some pretty heavy deliveries coming on in the next 5 years for office. Demand is high. Makes sense that when the deliveries, of course, come on board, that we're going to have slightly rising vacancy at some point. But a pretty positive outlook even across the state. Especially, you can see that in Bend, they're just now really starting to develop new office. Again, rents are going to be going up across the state for these as well. At least that's what we're predicting. And on to retail, the trends are very similar across the verticals. Banks started lending 2012, 2013. We're getting some deliveries now. It's going to start cooling off.
Are the pre-made charts with the forecasts available on CoStar?
Those are, yeah, yeah. So, sorry for skipping through some of that in the essence of time. I wanted to get onto the other slides. The good news is that despite the fact that vacancies we do predict are going to rise across the verticals, across the market, across the state of Oregon and within the different submarkets, is that Portland is actually very well protected. According to data taken from Moody Analytics and from larger national scope of commercial real estate data within CoStar, we've determined some of the most volatile markets looking at historical trends based off of oversupply and saturation as well as demand. And Portland actually falls just right within the middle. You can actually, if you can read this, this is Portland. So while it looks a little bit boring, it does mean that we're padded and cushioned from some of the risk that some of these other major markets in the country are going to experience with oversaturation. So I guess the lesson that we can take out of this is perhaps don't be too scared about markets overheating. Net migration and employment are actually pretty fantastic in this state right now. However, while it's not so great for the millennials, the good news is for you apartment brokers out there is that demand's still going to be strong probably for the millennials for apartment units. I'm experiencing right now just trying to find a new apartment. Very tight market right now. The reason for this is that there is a three-way squeeze on millennials for purchasing homes, and this comes in the form of having the worst credit out of any of the age brackets right now. Why do they have the worst credit? We could probably blame MTV for some of that, but you know, these kids graduated during the recession, so the salaries weren't as high, the jobs weren't as numerous, And so you had a lot of these millennials that were still living at home or that were taking the lower paying jobs, graduating college with a lot of college debt. And then there is the cultural pressure of urbanization as well. So the largest now age bracket in the United States is renting apartments and not purchasing homes. So I guess that's good news for anyone who's developing multifamily property.
So it's like a fourth.
Yep.
Portland was in the middle, Seattle was way off to the right. Can you explain what factors?
Yeah, so some of the factors included in this are looking at, like I was saying, oversaturation, overbuilding against the demand that we're predicting for, based off of net migration, people moving in, and people that are demanding, let's say, apartments or office space. And I think John can attest, a lot going on in Seattle right now. We think that there's a lot going on here. We've got an urban growth boundary that in part protects us, I think. I did want to talk to you guys about a little bit of a hoorah-rah to keep on working hard no matter what the month. I was curious actually what the deal flow looked like consistently from a month-to-month basis in the state of Oregon. And in fact, deal flow is by number of transactions fairly consistent month to month, and I was looking at rolling 5-year data on this, really with the exception being, and I think it's pretty intuitive to understand, towards the end of the year. In any given year, of course, there's a lot of folks that are rushing to close out and trade before they go into a new tax year. So when would I take a vacation if I was a broker? Probably never. But if you were, maybe start looking at plans for your next spring break. 2015 saw about $10 billion in arm's length transactions in the state of Oregon. So the question, again, kind of a hoorah-rah to keep going for you brokers in the room, is what was your share of the $400+ million commission pie? And we can see that multifamily, of course, has outpaced on a dollar transaction volume all of the other verticals. I think that's probably pretty intuitive for everyone working commercial real estate in this room as well. One other trend before we jump into the product itself, I also wanted to share with you that your buyer is not your neighbor, at least not any longer. So only 16% of the transactions that I've been tracking in the state of Oregon, and you can track this too if you have CoStar, were actually purchased by someone within the same zip code. Only about 28% from the same city, and only about 72% within the same state. So what does that mean? That we almost have 30% of the equity coming into transaction closes in the state of Oregon right now are coming in from out-of-state investment. That equates to about 60% for hospitality, 89% of the equity is coming from out-of-state groups within healthcare, 24% for land, and that's commercially zoned development land. Industrial, we're looking at over 30%. Multifamily, also over 30%. All of these folks looking for equity havens out of California and Oregon, as you can see on the charts. And the same for retail. And then specialty would include churches. Not a lot of folks are buying churches from out of state. Like I said, I was going to show you what the typical hold periods are across a couple of the verticals here. I understand apartments and office, so I only did this for apartments and office for you, but you can actually see that the highest asset value products within multifamily are being traded most frequently. Why is this? A lot of the larger development groups are trading these assets than to some of the larger REITs. The hold periods are not as long. So those bread and butter $1 to $5 million investments that you guys are going after, especially in multifamily, These are the more stubborn mom and pops that are holding on to their assets for a little bit longer. So we'll show how you can go into the product and actually filter to find those potential listing opportunities. With office, it's a little bit more scattered, but again, the smallest holding periods for the largest size assets in the market. So how are we collecting all of this data? We have a team of, it's actually now about 1,700 researchers across the country. We have 15, probably 15 to 20 now with our acquisition of Apartments.com, third-party data feeds that we're collecting. This would include some of the other companies like RealQuest and looking at metadata, in addition to doing postal checks and looking at some demographics and traffic counts. And we did also recently purchase an aircraft that flies over. Chris, how often are we flying over now?
We're flying 80 municipalities about 4 times a year. Unfortunately, the Pacific Northwest only gets 3 because of the winter, but they flew over October 12th through 14th of last year. And what they're doing is they're uncovering dirt that's moving or foundations that have been poured to go ahead and understand what the under construction properties look like, as well as the proposed. The 6K camera triangulates it back to the research committee, and they'll go ahead and find out and bring that information into CoStar, which allows all of our users to understand what's coming on the market that could affect price, supply, demand, et cetera.
Thank you. We also have field research vehicles as well that are, in fact, driving around the market. Here's an example of some of the cars. These are equipped much like squad cars, so they have the computer set up in the vehicle. They're going from property to property. They're taking photos. They're canvassing tenants, trying to understand who those tenants are, looking at signs, if something's for sale or for lease, getting that information back to our home base of operations, which is actually in Washington, D.C. We do have offices scattered across the country with large research teams. Our office, in fact, is based out of San Diego, so we have about 20 researchers in the San Diego office now that are dedicated to the Oregon and Southwest Washington markets for collecting data, for communicating with the field researchers who are collecting that data on the field and putting that information into the system itself.
And those researchers are also available to the users to answer questions or get additional information on the properties that you guys are looking for. If there's a missing phone number or a new tenant that's come in, we'll be happy to make those calls on your behalf. That's part of what you get with CoStar.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, it's essentially like having an outsourced personal assistant or associate who will do due diligence for you on your properties. On the top right-hand side, it's actually 4 rows of these monitor setups. These guys are monitoring our field research vehicles, picking up the phone and saying, hey, Joe, you missed a spot. Client X requested some additional information for this property. Can you update some photos? Can you see who the tenants currently are? Some examples of some of the third-party data feeds. Again, a lot of this stuff, if you don't have CoStar, you're going to a lot of these sources anyways. So you're checking with the city hall, public record data. You're doing some of the Google searches for who the tenants might be. In addition to some of those freebies that we're putting all into one place just to save you time and to help make the process a bit more efficient. We also do pay for some of our third-party data, such as our concentric radius demographics to any property that we track. And traffic counts. All of this culminates into what I like to call our quality control ecosystem. Because groups like Fannie Mae and the FDIC and the SEC and the Fed and then down to state and local agencies use our data, we do have to ensure that while it's not perfect, that if there is something missing, we like Chris was saying, give the ability for whoever uses our data to quickly contact research to make sure that we can update information that's in the system. So a lot of folks that have CoStar, and I hear this all the time, oh, this property wasn't updated. there's actually an option for you to just ping our research to update that information for you. So we'll show you how to do that as well for all of the users that are in the room. This is the Portland team. Some of these guys are support back office in other offices, but on the top left is my mug, and then we've got Chris Beck and then Glenn Vickery here, and then we're all here to support our current clients, of course, and then work in business development when we have time, which is probably about 5 to 10% of the time that we actually spend. And then, Chris, why don't you kind of show a little bit of the difference between CoStar and LoopNet and kind of share your experience?
Sure. So going to the next slide, I think you put a couple up there. Yeah. So I had a question earlier. Oh, CoStar, can you tell me the difference between CoStar and LoopNet? And LoopNet is out-facing marketing for you guys to go ahead and publicize the properties that you're moving at the time and with the documentation and data that you want to have fed to the general public. We've done a great job in terms of SEO and SCM spend to go ahead and have keywords allocated. I would challenge you to go back and look up commercial properties for sale in Portland and see what comes up. And I would suspect that first page is going to be scattered with a lot of properties. LoopNet was my choice of marketing, online marketing, when I was in brokerage. My success story is, in addition to signs, we always put it on LoopNet, and had a big beast of an industrial box down in Modesto, California, 360,000 square feet that had been vacant for quite some time. Tri-Valley Growers was the co-op. They'd gone belly up at that point. Came to us and asked us if we'd go ahead and contemplate listing it. We've, of course, said we'd take a shot at it. Did that. Dark, like I said, no tenants. We got the listing, put it out there at about $5.1 million, which was a fire sale price. Nothing happened for 6 or 7 months. LoopNet the whole time. Finally get a call from a broker out of Phoenix, whose name was Todd, and asked if the property was still for sale. I agreed it was, and then he said, "Is it still for sale for the same price?" And I said, "All offers shall be considered." And he said, "Great, I'd like to come see it." So he came up the next day. This is all within 1 week, Tuesday. Saw it, liked it. It was obviously dark, so we were walking around with flashlights with 40-foot high ceilings and a very cold concrete floor and rats and the rest of it. Said, "I think I may have the guy for this," who was basically a commercial flipper, self-taught, worth $500 million out of Malibu. Called him on his way home on Tuesday. Got a call from the buyer, ultimate buyer, you know this is going. Came up on Thursday, not commercially flew, but flew his private jet into Modesto, where we went ahead and had another Gilligan's Island tour, and had a cash offer the next day at, I think he stole it for $3.9 million, which was great. So 30-day closed the deal, call this buyer up and thanked him so much for his time, and he says, "Don't take your signs down, just say coming soon." And because he was an out-of-town owner and a flipper, he said, "I'm going to give you guys the listing, but I've got to do some deferred maintenance on it." So he put about $1.1 million of lipstick on the pig and did some roof and parking lot and some stucco work and carpet and bathrooms and whatever else. And when he was done, 3 or 4 months after that, he called us up and he said, "Put it on the market for $9 million. And we said, "You know what? You're the boss. You've done this before. We'd be happy to do that." Changed the entire marketing portfolio platform. Colors, schemes, new photos, aerial shots, the whole thing. Got it onto LoopNet as well, where LoopNet did his job again, and we got a call from an owner user 3 months later out of Minneapolis by the name of Fastenal, who came in, and we had to compete head-to-head with another property up in San Joaquin County in Stockton. We ultimately won out, and they bought it for $9.1 million. So he made his money. My firm got about $480 in gross out of 3 sides of 4 deals, and the guy that called us was a corporate real estate professional and did not go ahead and get a fee, so we got both sides of that as well. So LoopNet works, but the general public does not have access to CoStar. So LoopNet is broker loaded. If y'all have your listings out there, you get onto LoopNet, you say, "I have a piece of property for sale for this amount of money. This is who to call. These are the photos I want," etc. CoStar will list your properties for free when you let us know. We will ultimately catch on through LoopNet, but it would be much more efficient if you guys let us know until our back end systems tie up together, which should be later this year. You go ahead and let us know what it is. We'll bring it in. We'll vet it out. We'll make sure the square footage matches. We'll put in the price that you want. We'll upload your collateral, and you do not have to be a member of CoStar to do that. We really want as much information to come through as possible. CoStar has about 60% more listings in it than LoopNet offers within the market. So please contemplate both. One is to go ahead and attract the owner investor to come to you. We have a slide to this effect. 76%, bottom left-hand corner, are those tenants and investors that are actually looking for the properties that you guys may represent. Ultimately, they're either going to find a broker to help find them, or they can find you directly. And when they find you directly, that's a significant increase to your gross.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. And do you want to jump on down here as well?
Sure.
I'm just going to have Chris show also just a couple of tricks within the CoStar system for those who are not using CoStar. You are working with brokers who use CoStar. So even if you're not interested in the system yourself, I think it's going to be interesting for you to at least have a better understanding of the navigation of this and what this is providing as a resource for those brokers you're either working with or going up head-to-head against.
All right, everybody see that all right? I don't think this mic is on. It is on. Okay. We're going to do comps. Is that what you like to do? Some sales comps back in the...
Yeah, why don't you show the apartments
Sure.
not having transacted for at least the last 9 years?
Okay, so we have three main modules. We've got the property module, the comps module, and the tenant module, obviously in the system, which is property, all properties commercially based, the comparables, sales comps, lease comps, and then finally the tenant information, as long as real estate professionals and deal makers. And those deal makers are found through a number of filters: who's lending, who's representing, who's buying, the personal buyers, those have acquired, those have done whatever. But we'll go into the sales comps to come up with those properties that may or may not be, well, may be appropriate to go ahead and have that discussion with, as to you've owned your property in this sweet amount of time, which is 7 to 9 year hold period for multifamily. So if I were to go ahead and back out, excuse me while I get my glasses around my new cigar. Thank you, Jonathan. Come into the market. I'm going to go ahead and show you the Portland market. We're going to apply that. And if I go ahead and I type in what I want to see, which is the multifamily vertical, and let's say specifically my sweet spot is typically 25 units and higher. We won't track anything between 1 to 4 units in CoStar because that is defined completely differently as residential, as many of you know. And then if I went ahead and checked out a sale date and I wanted to go back to January 1st of, and we'll go back 9 years ago, and 9/16 is 2007, January 1st, and if I cap that off at January 1st, 3 years later, what we're going to see here is we're going to see kind of a sweet spot as to opportunities for these properties to be reassessed. They've obviously gone through the curve. They're hitting the average of hold periods. These are the properties that may or may not need to have a professional conversation. Maybe they're no longer with a broker. Maybe they're interested in the next phase of their life, trading out of something and into something else, taking their capital off the table. Maybe they're walking into the sunset and retiring and they want to cash out. I would suggest, and I teach to this effect, and just to show you, we have under contract or pending. So if I uncheck the sold button, you can see that right now we've got the 9 records that currently have met that criteria that are currently under escrow right now, or pending. So it can be very helpful information. As we go into those properties to understand what the comps look like, all I have to do is hit the view results, which is the next tab over. It's going to bring all those comps back to this list page. And to answer Steve's question, whenever you see a list or anything in CoStar can be exported. You can get lists. You can export it on an Excel spreadsheet. You can export it in terms of reports with photographs, mappings, etc. Come in through here, and let's go ahead and choose, it doesn't matter. We'll jump into property here, GE. We've got a recorded buyer. We've got the recorded seller, true seller, and true buyer. Mentioned true owner before. The reason the true owners are important, as the brokers and the professionals know in this room, you guys are CCIM, so this will be redundant. But LLCs don't return phone calls and they don't write checks. They don't make business decisions, right? So we want to get in touch with the person who can. As a result of that, CoStar does go ahead and get you true ownership information, which means someone will pick up the phone, someone can sign the check, someone can go ahead and listen to your tale when you start talking with them. We have the professionals that have worked on the deals before. It's important for you guys to go ahead and let us know when something that you were part of sells, comes on the market, if you represented the buyer or the seller. Please let us know, because this is also a filter-based opportunity for people looking for brokers, CCIMs, whatever in your area, in your vertical of specialty, can go ahead and test you out and make sure that you qualify for what it is that they're looking for.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, I understand, having come from Marcus and Millichap, which is probably the worst at doing this, wanting to work your network with the listing, and that's fine. But if you sell something, this, Chris brings up a great point. This is a great marketing tool. You've got brokers from out of state. When we've got 30% of the equity coming into the state of Oregon now is coming in from out of state on transactions that closed last year. We've got guys that you've never met who are looking at these deals. And so it's important, especially if you're the broker, I think, to have your name attached to that. So while it can be somewhat annoying if these researchers call you, tell them, hey, look, call me at the end of the month on this day, and I'll give you, 5 minutes at the very end of the month. Don't call me, every week. Work something out with them. But if it's important for you to market yourself, this is a great way to do it within your brokerage community, not just in your own market, but nationally.
And some of the things, this is multifamily, so we'll have the unit mix and the rents at the time of the sale, which is important historical data, obviously, because you can also then go into how that property is performing today, because we'll have updated rents, asking rents, negotiated rents in the system for that property. Special notes on the comp itself, property, the contacts of the property in the comps. This is the true buyer, the true seller. Scott Wandrow, Vice President, True Buyer. So this is the type of information that we like to deliver to the subscription base. I have a number of people in here that I believe can attest that it's helped speed up the process of their deals. Images, we have over 13 million images in all of CoStar, and certainly the multifamily has been fantastic for us with regards to those photographs because of everything we're getting in on the marketing side from the ILSs that we have, apartments.com, et cetera. Did you want me to do this for office as well?
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
That was multifamily. In order to find office that might be appropriate, was it the same time frame?
8.3 years, let's say.
So that's about right. So all I have to do is uncheck multifamily and check on office, and it's the same scenario. Now I've got my office comps that fall into that same range. It's very, very easy to go ahead and navigate the system. I would suggest this is a great prospecting list, a call list for you guys to do your due diligence and start making those calls, or at least get a strategy together.
And actually, while Chris does this search for the office for those deals that have transacted within that time frame, I wanted to share a way to, when you want to understand, before going in with the client, to do an assessment. So for the multifamily, there was, within about a 9-year time frame, 277 properties that transacted that were 25 units and up. So perhaps this would be a prospecting list for you for some potential listings. So what you can actually do within each one of those properties before you make that cold call is you can see what the surrounding rents are, and if they are under, at, or outperforming peers that you have selected to be comparable to that property. And what we find oftentimes is that, especially with the properties that have been held longer, and you guys probably know this, a lot of them have not been maybe keeping up with the Jones. Maybe it's held with the trust and the kids don't really care about it quite so much. You're going to find a lot of these are underperforming opportunities. But we can actually, figure this out pretty quickly by clicking into the analytics portions within the product too. And we don't have time to go into all of that, but for those who already have the system, as kind of a trick for maybe finding some listing opportunities out there.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr. Beck.
Two questions. What it looked like you were defining Portland to include Eugene and Bend, is that the way it becomes?
We have a number of submarkets and even down to the neighborhood. You can also draw polygons. For whatever reason, the Portland market is what we actually sell as a package, and it's the smallest package that we can sell in Oregon. It includes everything north of Longview, Washington, south of Cottage Grove, and
And Bend.
Eugene. Yeah, and then out to Bend. So pretty much everything that you're working, except for some of those more tertiary markets.
And second question, are you starting to pick up email addresses on sellers as part of the data available, or is it just phone numbers?
We do, not on all of them.
Let me jump in there
go
real quick.
ahead.
So I've backed up to the analytics on those multifamily comps that we did in that price range, just to kind of show you what's going on. So I have, the analytics come back in a hurry so we can see what was going on at the time. Specifically, Mr. Beck, under companies, I think what you're going to find out is I have true buyers, I have true seller, buying broker, listing broker, and for the lenders in the house, as you know, different verticals come in and out of favor of portfolio managers. So if you know of a particular lender that's left multifamily, which isn't going to happen right now, it's a great way of seeing what their exposure is. You could go in and I could determine who the lenders were, what comps of that range I might need to call. Washington Mutual has 41 loans to the tune of $54 million of those comps that we did back 9 to 7 years ago. If you wanted to go ahead and find out specifically on True Seller, I can come in here to True Seller and email addresses. You can see that we have some of the big boys up here, the corporations, etc., the mom and pops, 2 properties. I can come in here and understand. I do not have an email address for Ronald Peterson. However, that might be a question that it would be a question that you could ask research to go out and get.
Show how to do that real quick.
Yeah, you bet. So if I come down here to understanding what's going on on the home page, I don't really want to go home right now, but if I go back to the sales comp, throughout the system, one of the tabs that you're going to get when I jump into Bond Avenue, and it's repetitious in how you collect your data. So when I jump into Bond and it goes over to the next thing, which is where did Bond go? Doesn't matter, I'll go into Suite. Let's go to the next page, there we go. This is the last tab, under Contacts tab. We're going to provide you with the right contact person along the way. So under True Seller, if I click on that, over comes the information. In this case,
There's
the
an
true
email.
seller was Mark Peppercorn, Simpson Housing, and I will have an email address. That envelope represents an email address where if I click that, it automatically opens up the email throughout CoStar, and then you'll be CC'd back on it. It comes with the address as regarding the subject matter. But let's assume that there was an email address here. We provide you with the email and contact information for the appropriate researcher for that relationship within CoStar. So in this case, it's Nina, and that is the CoStar researcher for the seller, and you can go ahead and write an email off to Nina, and it will be CC'd back to you. In this case, it's Ryan's email address. This is my favorite email address in the entire research system because that is the manager of Nina, the person that you're contacting. So that manager will come back and contact Nina and say, did you take care of Mr. Beck's request for an email address or a phone number? It's keeping everybody honest. Is that it?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Demographics to the center of the property. Many different delivery systems, traffic counts. We can overlay the traffic counts onto the mapping program, which is easy. Aerial photographs, etc. Puts the property onto the map. Go ahead and bring in an aerial photograph right away. We can identify the property. Go back to the road, and then I can bring on traffic counts, etc. So it's a very versatile map. We don't do traffic counts. This is third-party data, but we supply it back to the users.
Those retail logos that you often see on marketing brochures, we have an option to bring those up. Oftentimes, those are just people clipping a photo out of CoStar. And I know that when I was a broker, I would see a lot of those as well.
Well, here, I just overlaid it here, so you can
perfect.
see there's a Starbucks and a TJ Maxx and whatever else, Petco. is online here, and then I could go ahead and bring on the aerial map as well and keep the tenants on there. So there's a lot of information in here. Some people often say, well, CoStar won't do this for me. And I think, quite frankly, that's because the question hasn't been asked. We're able to help and train and teach. If we can't supply an answer immediately, we will go and find the answer and get back to you. That's why we brought Glenn on full-time. So we'd like to service as much as possible. Ryan and I are obviously in discipleship and sales, so we'll leave some cards and some collateral in the back, but it's fairly intuitive in the way it works. Love to give you guys an opportunity to take a look at it if you so desire.
Yeah, and really appreciate everybody's time today. If there's any questions that you have, any current clients, anyone that has, of course, we'd love to bring more people on board, but I hope that this was helpful to understand a system that is very popular in the industry, that a lot of brokers that you're working with are, like I said, going up against, either have used or are currently using. So Chris, did you have anything else that you wanted to bring up before we go into questions?
I do not.
Okay. Do we have some questions then for us? Jonathan?
Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to ask both the gentlemen, do you have any preferred pricing for our esteemed members of Oregon CCIM?
That's a great question.
I'm here looking for my clients.
Right. Talk to us afterwards because I have talked to John about this. So talk to John or myself if you're looking to become a new member with CoStar, then we'd definitely like to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation, it was really informative.
Thank you.
If you sign up and use CoStar, are you able to access it from different computers so an office can share it, or is this like a one computer subscription?
That's a good question. It is. So the way that CoStar works, it is licensed per broker. And to prevent potential data sharing, we do have anyone who's a commercial broker licensed at a company. So I know that there are systems out there such as Bloomberg terminals from having come from finance where it would be a terminal. We are not a terminal. We are a per licensee, real estate licensee that specializes in commercial. Now, if you're 82 years old and you're on the way out, we're going to be human about it. You know, we're not going to say everybody who's not even going to use the system has to be licensed. No, it's the practicing commercial brokers. We're incentivized on an ongoing basis for folks to actually use the system. We're sales. We make commissions just like you guys. If you don't use it and we sell it to you, we don't get paid. So there's no incentive for us to sell a system to somebody and sell the solution to someone who's not actually going to get use out of it. If that helps to answer your question, go ahead.
Yeah, if you would elaborate, so if I purchase it and I have access to it on my desktop in
Yep.
the office, can I use it from my iPad at home too, or is it only?
I got that. So your iPad is a secondary question, but the answer is yes. If you had what's called the suite of products, and it's those three products that we talked about, property, sales comps, and tenant, you would have the ability to have it on your iPad as a second device, but only one license. We're getting a little friendlier as to believing that people are not going to go ahead and share the data. So if you had a hard computer CPU at the office and a laptop, there's an opportunity for us to get what's called a key fob with a code on it that you and yourself and you only get to log on to with that.
Yeah. The answer is yes. You can use it if you need to go between your home and your office. It's just a USB plug-in, and it just auto generates a new password every time, and then you sign in with your login. And yes, yep.
So it's brokers only?
No.
No.
If you're not a broker, you can still buy a license?
Yes. We have a number of lenders, assessors, and appraisers especially use this data for the sales comps and understanding the current rents and leases and lease comps on their properties.
It really is dependent on your vertical. I've got a commercial landscaping company that's a user, and they're out trying to identify people with multiple properties. They can come in and sweep in and get their five properties on a contract to get monthly checks. Painters, lenders, banks, developers, owners, property managers, and the list goes on and on and on. Depending on your vertical, we would obviously train based on your profession as well.
Right. Any other questions?
Does the revenue only come from your membership fees, or do you get a slice of the transaction?
Yeah, we are not a broker. And that Chris and I have been brokers. We are not brokers at all. We cannot practice commercial real estate as long as we're working with CoStar, unless we were to get some serious corporate sign off. And there would need to be a really good exception, like it's my dad's property. The answer is no, we are not in that business. It is a flat fee license, and we are here to help you guys, not compete against you guys. Very clear about that.
Quick question about
Yeah.
looking up somebody's name. Can you look up somebody's name and it'll show all the properties that they own within that market that you're?
Yes.
Yes, everything's hyperlinked, so you could click, Joe Schmo, and you could see the 15 other properties, or Joe Weston and the 400 other properties that they own.
But it's not just limited to Oregon, it's all markets that.
To-
You pay for your, yep,
You pay for the market that you would like to have, and then we can go ahead, and the next market that you would add would be a discounted price off of the first one, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
Depending on the house, though, it's complicated. We're not hiding behind anything, but each situation is unique,
yeah.
so.
You get national for sale data no matter what, if you have property.
That's true.
So you do get national for sale data to see all those other listings that are there.
I guess that's it.
Yeah? Awesome. Thank you, guys.